started. My name is Paul Quinnell. I'm an instructional technologist here at Tarleton State, working with the IT department. Basically, what that means is I help train people on using technology. And the big focus area for me lately has been AI, because it turns out it's a bit of a thing these days. When I proposed this session, it was for introduction to generative AI, and we're going over some basic items. The framework of everything has shifted so much in those 4 or 5 months that this is a completely different training class. And that's just kind of how these things are going. So the new name is AI Builder Essentials, because what we're doing is we're focusing on a big new tool we have available here at Tarleton State through the system. So let me walk you through that. If you guys have a device, you're welcome to kind of follow along when I get to the demo end. The handout you have has 2 elements. There's a vocabulary list. So we don't try to do jargon too much in technical training, but it's inevitable with AI. So if you see something, if I say something you're not sure of, check the list. The second sheet is to digital resources. It has everything I'm going over today, and more importantly, has instructions of different customization things I'm going to be talking about. So something you can take back and work on your own system. That link's available to anyone at Tarleton. So if you've got colleagues that you think would benefit this, feel free to share that with them as well. All right. So what we're covering today is we're going to cover the difference between the AI Builder system and the commercial AI, like ChatGPT or Gemini, or something like that. We're going to go over some configuration that's going to start you on turning it from just a low-grade chatbot to something that's more personalized and will give you much better output for what you need specifically. And we're going to go through the list of features real quick on the system. So in the landscape with AI users right now, there's a lot of people who are kind of hesitant about getting started. They've got low confidence in usage. They don't know what to get started in, how to get started into it. Things are unclear. Policies are unclear. Surely our AI policies aren't unclear. Oh, wait, they're a little bit unclear. Part of that's because no one really knows what's going on and things are changing rapidly. So for individual users, you kind of just want to get into it. It seems a little daunting watching everything progress so quickly. It is less daunting when you're at speed. It's a lot like riding a bicycle. You're going to have a better time. I'm not going to say it's not going to still tear ahead of you, but you'll be able to keep a better eye on it and have a better understanding of what's going on. We do have enough policy and enough usage guidance now that you can safely do this in the work environment, specifically with the AI Builder tool. So the big thing AI Builder brings to us is data protection. We're under an enterprise data protection agreement with all the service providers that are involved with it. There's different data collection levels at the TAMU system. And this one is at a DC5. The lowest one's DC6. So DC5 means, among other things, you can put student data in here. You can put health data in here. You can put financial data here. It's FERPA ready, HIPAA ready, GDRP ready. The only thing you can't put in here is anything that, if misshared, would put you in a courtroom. So anyone with a DoD contract, maybe not so much. But outside of that segment, your data is actually secure. The third parties don't have access to it. Everything stays within our compliance rules in-house. When you're dealing with something like a ChatGPT or a Gemini account, even if it's a paid account, that's not the case. Everything you feed into it, they're using to feed back on their model. That's supposedly the only thing they're doing with it. It's probably the only thing they're doing with it, but they still have your data sitting in there. So it's very easy to put somewhat sensitive information in, trying to do a work thing on a personal account. So we want you guys to start looking at the AI Builder. The benefit of the AI Builder over something like Copilot, which we'll go over, is it works a lot more like the commercial accounts you may be used to. The other big item, that makes us different over than like Copilot is we have access to multiple models. So Copilot's mostly ChatGPT based, but Microsoft tweaks it before you get your hands on it. So it's not quite the same. And honestly, it's not quite as good. This has direct access to ChatGPT models, the same one that ChatGPT account access. It's got the same access to Gemini models from Google and Claude models from Anthropic. We do technically have a usage limit, which we'll go through. No one in here is going to hit that limit. I haven't hit that limit, and I live in this thing. I know two guys on campus who've hit it, and so unless you're coding system level architecture on the most expensive model for 4 hours straight, you're going to be fine with the setup. The limit's there, so there's at least some budget control for the system. This is accessible to faculty and staff and students. Anyone with a Tarleton account has access to this. Everyone has equal access to this. You have as much access as I do. The students have as much access as anyone else. It's a massive equalizer in terms of tool access. If you're ever in a position where you want to have the students use AI for a class assignment, the kid with $20 and the kid without, both on ChatGPT, $20 wins so hard. He gets more uploads, he gets more downloads, and more importantly, he gets access to reasoning models. And his output is just better. And there's no compensating for that. Using this tool, they'll have a similar performance level as a paid subscription that's accessible to all the students. There's no cost to anyone, and they just use their Tarleton account. No extra account or anything else to set up on. And then we've got a handful of custom tools we'll go through that things like Copilot doesn't give access for. So when we're looking at AI Builder and Copilot, AI Builder is kind of your daily usage now. It does most of this stuff better. Where it falls off and where you still may want to use Copilot is going to be for image generation and then the occasional file generation. These are tools that they just can't do inside of AI Builder. So if you need to build an image, you can go over to Copilot. If you need to edit a PDF and have it spat back out as a PDF, you need to go over to Copilot for that. But you're going to have a lot better time in terms of your chats and your responses working with the AI Builder and the various models they have available over there. So what we're going to go through with a bit of a live demonstration, I'm going to show you how to optimize your setup. This is going over daily drivers. So if you're not really sure what models to be using, I'm going to show you what 3 models to get started with, and then you kind of go from there. We're going to do some personalization using system prompts and memory. These are going to be tools to make the AI behave the way you want to and to teach the AI about you and how you work. And you get a lot better output when it has these instructions set in from a one-time effort. And then we're going to go through the various tool sets that we have in the system here. So do I have any initial questions before we dive in? Maybe anything concerned about with AI in general? Okay. So the quickest way to access it from a verbal standpoint is the website's tamus.ai. And then you would come down to the Tarleton logo here and we get logged in, and it's going to log me in as someone else, and we don't want to do that. Sign them out real quick. I'm going to do it incognito web. Just 1 second.
If you go to the 3 dots,
Yeah.
it should
I'm a Mac guy and I'm on Firefox.
Right, it always throws you off. You're welcome.
Again, standard Tarleton login. We'll ask you for your password and your security thing at least once a week, just along with everything else. No AI solution for that yet. All right. Once you're logged in the first time, the address you get here is the one you actually want to bookmark, and that gets you around a couple of the extra clicks. That gets you just straight logged in over to the main system. So when you guys are getting logged in the very first time, you're being set up with this model, GPT 4.1. That's fine, it works. It's 18 months out of date, which is a lifetime in AI work. So very first thing you guys should do when you come in here is to update that model. If you want to keep it with a chat GPT, you can come in here, and it's always easier to search than to scroll because this list is large and just gets larger. And it's also not sorted very well. You'll notice I've got 5, 5, 1, 5, 2, and then down here is 5, 4. So I'm going to go with 5, 4. And there's a set default, and I'm going to set that. And I'll get a little notification, and that just changes my default model. So next time I start a new chat, it's going to be up to date with the system. The other thing I want to do is get these guys over on the sidebar, which is my other daily drivers. So GPT 5.4 is one of your daily drivers. At some point, it's going to be GPT 5.5 or 6, and that's fine. Always go with the latest version number. There's zero upside to going with an older version number. There's no cost savings. You're just taking away capability in terms of usage. So if the name's the same except for the version, always go for the latest version. The other daily driver is Gemini 2.5 Pro. And what you can do here, there's a little more button over to the side, and there's going to be an access to show and hide it. Come here. There we go. The show and hide it over in the sidebar, and that gets it added here. And then the third model is Claude Sonnet 4.6. This just came out a week or so ago. And again, we'll add that to the sidebar. So GPT 5.4, Gemini Pro 2.5, and Claude Sonnet 4.6 right now, or whatever future version there is, are what I call daily drivers. 80, 90% of your work, they're all going to do basically the same thing. These models are becoming more of a commodity. It's kind of like when you turn on the lights. Do you care which power plant is running the electricity? No, as long as the lights come on. Honestly, that's where AI is going. There are individual things that these different models can do better than others. And there are a few other models we have available in our system that can do certain things better than others. In the resource guide, I have a link to a deep dive guide if you want to get into it about the 8 or 9 recommended models of the 20 we have. 11 of them are just, they're out of date and don't, you ignore them. And it goes into what those kind of specialize in. So if you can look at that, see if maybe something does something that you want to do, and you could focus use on that model. But in terms of getting started, I don't want you to worry about that much. Just start with one. If you're used to ChatGPT on a personal account, stick with GPT. If you're used to Gemini, stick with Gemini. Explore these 3 if you're not sure, and see which one you kind of like. Whatever one you jam with. Honestly, their outputs are very different, and you may not like GPT or you may not like Gemini. GPT is very sycophantic. I hate it. It annoys me. When I'm asking for thoughts on ideas, I don't need it. That's the greatest idea ever. It's not. It's coffee. It's what I had for breakfast. So you want to go through and do those. One easy way, if you want to test out certain items, is you can do what we call a multiple model prompting on this system. This is not something you could do on ChatGPT or Gemini, by the way. So we have our first model selected here. There's this plus button, and I can add a model. And so I can add GPT 5.4. I could do one more. We'll do Sonnet. Those are our three big boys. You can do more than three. I don't recommend it. Screen real estate starts to turn into a problem at that point. So I can do that. And I put in a single prompt. And what I do is I get three. Oh, good. This is where I bring my own computer. So I get three side by sides. And the same prompt went to all three. They're not aware of each other. And as you can see, there's a speed difference in terms of who's coming back when. And they've all got a similar but different response. And I can kind of glance through here. So like Sonnet's being kind of concise in terms of what it's doing. ChatGPT is getting longish instead of scenario. A lot of the similar information is going to be similar because they're all pulling from the same data sets. But this gives you an idea. If you're doing something very specific, like which one is going to do a better job summarizing this report or synthesizing this data, you can run it like this, see the results for all of them as a test case and go, okay, maybe I want to mess with this model more, and then go from there. So it's a quick, easy way to do a check on that. Any continued prompting I do in this conversation does stay multimodal unless I start removing one of them or I just go to a new conversation. All right, so any questions on models? All right, like that. These three are your main ones. They're not going to steer you wrong. They're all what they consider flagship. So in Gemini and ChatGPT's case, it's the best we've got. Claude's got one better, but it gets expensive. And honestly, the new version of Sonnet's really good. It's as good as the upper level of Claude was last generation. And remember, generation was literally 2 weeks ago. The worst AI you will ever use in your life is today. That's just the progress of these things. All right. Let me show you guys some more customization here. So down this lower left, you've got your profile, and up in there you can click on settings. And you're welcome to take a look, especially in the interface, and there's a bunch of options you can kind of go through to your preference and play around with those. But the two I want to focus on, one's in general, and that's the system prompt. This is universal instructions that the AI obeys at all times. So I don't have to repeat this. It's effectively like I added it onto every single prompt I ever do. And it takes a place across all the different models I might possibly use. And this is how you train the AI to respond in the way you want it to respond. I've got a copy paste ready template in the digital resources. You guys can pull up later and pull it in here. What I encourage you to do is you want to start with that, is paste it in here and then read it through line by line. It's not super long. It's like 30 lines. And see what you like, see what you don't. I have it rigged up to respond as an analysis and very much takes a facts-based approach. It's specifically told to not get, have emotional ties. It's specifically told not to deal with ethics on its own. I try to train it to say, I don't know, when it doesn't know something, because it has a problem doing that. And it deals with a lot of the annoyances a lot of folks tend to have with how the AI is responding to them. My personal copy has a little extra item that I added in later, where I tend to take a lot of the content from here and paste it into my Note app, which is Markdown. And so I would keep I would tell it, cool, give me that response in a code block. And I got tired of writing that. So now it has, if you're outputting something and there's any indication I'm going to copy this, it automatically creates it into a code block. So now I don't have to prompt it to do that. It just shows up automatically. So whenever it's doing something you don't like, this is where you come in here and say, stop it. Whenever it's not doing something where you want to do something extra, this is where you come in and tell it. It's not code, it's a response. How would you tell this in as short of phrase as possible to an intern or to an undergraduate student in terms of just changing their direction? and you don't have to worry about hurting their feelings. So that's where the system prompt comes into play. The other one's under personalization, and you'll need to enable memory, and then you go to manage. And I have 3 memory templates. Now, these are fill in the blank templates because I did not build a custom one for all of you. I'm sorry. I do 3 templates in here. And the first one is you. You're literally teaching the AI about you. And you can notice that the phrasing here, this is actually appropriate. If you put I, it thinks about it. Yes. Okay. So you put this user. So it has an understanding that it's referring back to the human. So you give it the name, you tell it where you work, what your job title is, what your job duties are, any specializations you have, additional duties, experience level, that type of information. So it has that reference point. So when you go, hey, I need help with this class, it understands you teach this subject matter. You teach in this age range. You're responsible for these department reports or something else going on in your job. The second memory item is called tools, and you teach about the tools you use. So I'm a Mac user. I tell it I use a Mac. I have a PC if it forces me to, but I prefer my Mac. I tell it what my favorite web browser is. I tell it about my note-taking app. I let it know we're on a Microsoft Office campus. If you're instructional, you tell it we use Canvas for the LMS. This type of information in here for what it does. This got me a service award. It was actually from CEE. There was a problem going on with the PDFs in the fall. We have to submit all of our syllabus have to turn into PDFs, and we have to submit every syllabus in a single PDF to the state because the people in charge don't understand technology. And the tool that got bought was having a problem doing it. And they started asking around for help, and I got asked, hey, can AI do this? I went, probably not, but you know who would know? AI. So I asked the AI, hey, can we do this? And they went, no, but you're a Mac user. This default tool in your Mac can do it. Really? How? Boom. The next morning, after running all night, we had the PDF ready to go because it knew I had access to those tools when I didn't know I had access to it. So these things do come in handy. The last one is projects. This is where you talk about your larger. So if you're faculty, this might also be a good way to talk about what classes you're doing each semester. Otherwise, what project work you're working on. You do want to remember to come back in here and kind of update this as the months go by and things change. So let it know what these are long-term major initiatives, things that might end up as goals in your self-evaluation, that kind of thing. When it runs the system prompt, it always scans that, follows instructions. It doesn't always scan memory, but it knows it's there. And if something triggers it, it's going to go look at the memory, see if there's something related. By doing all these tools, it's going to understand your audience better. It knows I train university faculty and staff here. It knows that they have a mix of technology experiences. I don't have to constantly prompt that when I'm asking for output that's related to training material. It knows exactly that's what I'm doing. When I've done some items and pulled up some information on one project that happened to have a tie-in to another project, it identifies it and points it out to me and asks, do I want to follow up on that? So that's handy. Sometimes it's nice. Sometimes it's, no, that's stupid, go away. But it's nice that it's there and that it's doing that type of work on your own. And it's just a one-time use. If you have these things working compared to your colleagues who do not, you will have better output. You will have better responses. Your production will go up. Your efficiency will go up. You hear everyone constantly talk about 10xing your productivity with AI. This is the first step on starting that. You will never hit that level without this kind of basic setup going. So if you do nothing else, take a look at these templates, put them in. You see something you want to change? Change it. It's your AI. Any questions on customizations? All right. Let me show you a big one for faculty members, because I get asked this a lot. Data retention with the system. So this whole model system is controlled by Texas A&M System University. Chats maintain a 90-day retention. So the date starts on your last activity in any given conversation. For the first 30 days, it just shows up in your conversation list, which is chronological. So there's today, if there was yesterday stuff, there'd be yesterday, 7 days, 30 days. Anything older than that I haven't engaged with moves to an archive. And if I click on my name, there's an archive chats, and that's where I could find chats that are between 30 days, 31 days, and 90 days. At 90 days, so 30 days in the archive, the chat gets deleted automatically by the system. It's done for two reasons. One is to meet data compliance rules, and more importantly, to keep the file storage from going insane and causing a big buildup. You can mark any chat to stay permanently. There's this little more button here, and you just hit pin. And what happens is it jumps out of your date range to this pin list. So it's always at top. So it's handy organizationally. And this chat will now ignore retention rules forever until I unpin it. The other way to do it is just stay active in the chat. My experience is in most cases, any chat I haven't touched in 30 days, I'm probably not going back to. I don't know how many of you sit and think about responding to an email for 30 days and then on day 31 actually do it. But that's how the system goes. If for whatever reason you don't want the chat saved at all, you can do that. You got to do it when you start a chat. So if I do a new chat, I've got a little button here called temporary chat. I'll click on that and I'll get a confirmation temporary chat motion here. I can still select my model. I can prompt, I can upload files, I can do everything I normally do with the chat. When I leave this window, it's gone. This is all in active memory. It is not ever saved to the drive. So when I close this menu, when I switch to a different conversation in the window, computer restarts, anything like that, everything just goes poof. But in the meantime, I can interact with the system how I want to, record whatever feedback I want to in whatever manner I want to, and then not worry about it. So two big advantages of that. One, if you're doing a lot of stuff that you don't want clogging up your list, you can do that. But there's just some instances where there's just a little bit of a big brother concern. Of the main chats you can see, there are 3 people in the world who can see it, and they are crazy busy, and you are not interesting. They are not looking at anything short of some kind of legal action going down. But if you want to just take that extra step on your end, that's where the temporary chat comes in. From what I've been told, the system, once the chat's been deleted, it's gone. No one can recover it. If you do a manual deletion, it disappears. If you do the 90-day automatic disappears. And then the temporary, you don't even get to that step because it never saved it to disk in the first place. Okay. All right, let's talk about a couple of the other features here. Folders. These are fun, and because they are simple and complex at the same time. So folders show up at the top. At a very base level, they're a good way to organize your chats. So if you just don't like the massive list of chats and you don't want to deal with the search tool to figure out where in that massive list of chats was that message from 31 days ago that, damn it, you're going to get to today, you can use folders. So you can, the creation is easy, little plus button, little title, and you can be as simple as that. And then once you have your folder created, you can drag any chat you already have existing into the folder. You can also just click on the folder. You can still change the model. And I can start a new conversation here. Oh, me a liar, you want to be slow. Get an actual response, I should say. There we go. So the new one I started by clicking on the folder is now showing up automatically in the folder there. So again, you can use it for basic organization. The advanced features you can do when you make a folder is you can do two things. You can do a system prompt, or you could do knowledge. So the system prompt here is kind of like the master one we showed before, but it only affects anything inside the folder. So I can create a folder with specific instructions because the folder is based on a project, the folder is based on a class, and it doesn't contaminate everything I'm doing across the system, but I don't have to retype and reteach it context when I come back into it. So let's see, I think I have I think this one has a data. Yeah. So I can give it that information. The knowledge collection, like I have in here, I can upload files or do a knowledge collection, which we'll go over in a minute here. And I can give the folder specific data that it references whenever any prompts are run for any conversation within the folder. This is a way of letting it build off of your information. So if you've got data that's niche, that's very timely, because the data sets on these things tend to be 12 to 18 months out of date, or it's proprietary or unique to you. It's your research data, your transcripts of your oral histories, that type of data you want to pull from. You can load those into here and have a folder full of prompts and conversations, and those conversations will automatically ground themselves on that data. So if you ask it about trends with a bunch of Excel files you have loaded in there, it will default off of those files and give you back that information. And if I have additional system prompt instructions to only ever do it in rhyme, then it will do that at the same time. Everyone okay on folders? All right. The next three items are inside this workspace area. And we're going to skip over to knowledge because it just keeps coming up when we do this stuff. Knowledge is pretty simple. It's a way to store files in AI Builder for elements of AI Builder to access it. I do not advocate this as long-term file storage plan or a backup plan. Keep using OneDrive or something else for that. But this is data that you want the system to have access to at some point. Creation, it's again pretty new. You give it a name. You do have to give it a description. So to create, and we get a nice blank piece of paper. We click the plus button here. I can upload files from my computer or my OneDrive. If they're already organized in a folder, you can point it to that folder and it'll pull up. There are some caveats in terms of what it can upload. The two big ones are it can't take any single file over 25 megabyte. There's not a total file limit, but it doesn't like files over 25 megs. And then the other thing it has a problem with is image files with text. So if you took a picture of a physical piece of paper, it's going to have a hard time reading that. Copilot will fix both those issues for you. You take the offending file, put it in the Copilot. If it's a PDF that's over 25 meg, ask Copilot to split it up and give you two PDFs that are 15 meg or less, and it'll spit those out, and you can put those in here. AI doesn't care if you cut in the middle of the chapter. It doesn't throw it off. The same thing with the image. You can give that to Copilot and ask it to make a text scannable PDF. And it'll give you the same PDF, looks just like before. There's no difference to you, but magically it works here. And again, the digital resources, there's going to be a guide to knowledge collections. In that is a whole troubleshooting section for the things that tend to have problems and how to deal with them. Once you've got your data set in here, there's nothing else you really do in the collection other than just curate it. You can always come back and add data, and you can always remove data. You can access the knowledge collection all over the place. I can be in a basic prompt, and there's an attached knowledge option. And I can come in here and select any individual file that I've put in here, or select an entire collection of files that I've put in here. Once I do that, again, that's what I prompt is now grounded in that data. So I was doing a project, we were comparing large touchscreen displays for possible classroom use. Our AV guy had all the spec sheets and white pages and all the technical documentation, and I wasn't going to read that. So I put that into here, and I started a folder. It's this folder right here with the project. And the first thing I did was ask it to make me a matrix of the different specifications. And what I got out was a CSV file at the end that listed out major components and did side-by-side comparisons of the systems. I didn't have to give it too many details because I tied it to the knowledge collection, and it knew what models I was dealing with and just went through that information. If something did come up on its end, when I checked, it's because it wasn't in the specifications. Turned out one of the providers wasn't very good at giving us specifications. I thought it was an AI problem, but it was up on their end. So that's where that can come into use. Obviously, you got a knowledge collection, you can tie it to a folder, and the other big place you tie it into is custom models. We'll show you here. I do a deep dive on custom models on Thursday near the end of the day. If you want to come back for that, because this kind of gets into it. This is where you build a specialized digital assistant. So there's a task or something you do on a regular basis that has a really set, defined type of output you want. You can come in here and build this once and then get a big return on your time afterwards. You can also build something that you know how to do that people bug you about, give them this tool, and then they stop bugging you. So for example, I would do a lot of formatting of the knowledge base articles for IT because I knew how the HTML template worked and I just got good at it. And the other guys would just give me a Word file and go, here, can you make this pretty? And so I just built an agent that did it. And so now I'm like, no, you. And they stick their Word file into this agent and it automatically formats it to our standard. And then it instructs them on how to copy paste it into our knowledge base. So I don't even have to tell them how to do that. It's literally taking what I was doing for them or what I would tell them to do over a chat and just getting that moved over to them. In the new custom models, when you go to make one, the basics are pretty much self-explanatory. Model name, there's a description. You do have to pick your base model. So which of the main model sets you want to use. When in doubt, stick with the one you tend to use. And when you don't have one of those, stick with one of the 3 daily drivers. You can come back in here and test this later for different items. You can do your research on what different models can do. And you can always come back in here and make a change. But it's not going to necessarily, picking the wrong model is not going to make or break the entire tool. It's just going to affect the output a bit. The system prompt, again, that word again, is where we give the instructions. This is what turns it from a generalist into a specialist to what we want to do. And again, we can attach knowledge information. So let me show you one of these that I've built. This was a fun one I did recently. I'm going to be talking to HR to see if we can push these for next year. I built a self-evaluation assistant. This one, I originally built it for staff, and then my wife, who's an admin, saw her people using it and got mad at me. And so I had to build an admin version. So I'll need to go build a faculty version next. This walks staff through their self-evaluation process. And it's trained on our self-evaluation process because they got fed the information in the instruction set I gave it. So it understands we have goals, and it prompts for the goals. It prompts the user for the job description, tells them where to get it in the workday. It understands the competencies, what the 5 levels are, what the definitions are, HR's policy on what you should be selecting by default in terms of your self-rating. So it tries to enforce a meets expectations, because that's kind of the default. And if you go, no, I want to be exceeds, it's going to look at what you fed it in terms of supporting data, and it will call you out if you don't have it with the setup. It identifies if you supervise anyone and then moves you over to the supervising competencies. And if you don't, it doesn't. It just skips it. The big thing it also does is it helps draw out the information from the user about their year. I cheat. I keep good notes. So I fed it. Here's my year-long notes of stuff. It went, cool. This is perfect. And we went through everything, and I was done with my evaluation in like 10 minutes. If you don't have those notes, which most people don't, it walks you through those. It talks to you about checking your calendar. It asks you about your major projects. It does an interview style where it's pulling this information out of you. A lot more successful than what did you do this year kind of deal. So the people using it are not doing it in 10 minutes, but they're doing it in a lot less time than they would normally. And hopefully they're getting some more information put in than they would have from just pulling from memory during the last minute. So this is an example of this setup. The base model is Claude, which is great at writing, which is why I went with it. But Claude doesn't know anything about our HR policies. It's all in the instruction set here. And before you freak out about the instruction set, I didn't write a lick of this. Not one bit. Even it's not code. It's all wording with a formatting. I use an AI because it turns out who knows AI better than AI. So one of the things I do when I do the deep dive on this is we go over how to use AI to build your own AI tools. So you just need to know what you want and have enough semblance to kind of understand your audience and your context. And you can do a lot of amazing stuff with surprisingly low effort and without not that much technical skill. All right, so that's the brief overview of custom models. Again, I'll be going over that more on Thursday. Any questions there? Okay, let's do prompts. So these are saved prompts. They just call it prompts because they like to confuse people with the terminology. If there's a prompt you write over and over, you could just put it here and save yourself some keystrokes. You start a new prompt, you title it whatever you want. The title does tend to come into the command field here. And the command field does matter because that's kind of one of the keyboard shortcuts. Also worth knowing, the command field here is unique across the instance. So for example, I have a prompt called clarify, which means no one else can have a prompt called clarify in Tarleton. And so those things can be shared if you want to do sharing. Once those two are set, then you just write your prompt and you're good to go. When you use these, so I'll do the clarify, I can just slash and whatever prompts I have access to come up. I can narrow it down by typing a little bit. And I can select the prompt and it just injects the test. It doesn't run it. So I can add this at the bottom of a prompt. This particular prompt I use all the time. If I'm doing something newish with AI, I add this prompt, which is what I'm doing is I'm telling the AI to look at everything I gave you, and then ask me questions that are going to improve your response before you do the thing I told you to do. And so when I inject this, I'll get a list of questions. If I get 3 or 4 questions, I did pretty good. If I get 8 to 10 questions, I did a really bad job prompting. And usually it's asking for context and audience and that type of information. And then I feed it that. Then I get my extra output. And this one prompt increases my output substantially. This taught me how to prompt. I did this enough. I kept picking up, okay, I'm bad at audience. I'm bad at this type of context. I'm bad at this type of constraint. This particular prompt is shared for everyone. If you go into your instance and type /clarify, it will also come up. You can add this onto any of your prompts, get the little questionnaire real quick, answer the questions, and you can improve your outputs. The way we're doing that in all these items, so for models, knowledge, and prompts, they can all be shared. When you go into one of these, there's either an access button or this is already in the window, and we can add groups. Now, your group list is not going to look like my group list. Whatever group you're a member of will automatically pop up in here. And any group you're a member of, you can share things to that group. So like everyone's got faculty and staff, but you don't necessarily want to share everything with all faculty and staff. Maybe you want something just for your department or for your college. In that case, you can reach out to myself, you can reach out to IT, and you can give us a list of users you want in a group, and we can make you a group, put you in it, everyone else you need in it, and it'll show up in here when you come in. You can share a prompt, you can share a custom model, you can share a knowledge collection, and everyone's got access to that same information. Anytime you do any curation or changes, it just automatically changes on their end. There's no link, there's no emails, there's no extra stuff for getting into in terms of the sharing. All right. Any questions so far? So good? All right. This should be the last bit. This is a little bit more aimed at the faculty, but you never know who's going to find it useful. We do have some export and import capabilities with this system, and it works a lot better than Copilot's. So I do like it. So I mentioned if you want your students to use AI, this is a good tool to do because they all have equal access. Well, the other good reason for it is if you can require them to upload their conversation, and they can do that very easily when they submit their assignment. On any chat, they can click, there's a download, and easiest case in terms of you just want to read something is just save as a PDF. You'll get a PDF copy of the conversation, everything they prompted, what model is selected, what the responses were, how the conversation went down. So again, if you're doing an AI related assignment, maybe you don't want to scan all of these, but maybe you're looking at the assignment, something went off the rails. This is the way was it the AI or was it the student? Is it my fault or, that they typed wrong? So you can check on that. The other system, you can do text, although text can get edited, so I don't love it. The other option here is JSON. This is interesting, but it's very niche. JSON's a machine language, so if you export to JSON, it's gobbledygook to you when you open it. But if you do a JSON conversation and send it to a colleague, they can come in here, go to settings, go to data controls, and they have an import chats button. They can then import that JSON, and your conversation shows up in their instance as it looks on your instance at the time of the export. So if you did a conversation from last week, it literally shows up from last week on their chat list with the same titling. They click on it, they see all the prompts, they see all the responses. They can then continue the conversation on their end. It doesn't impact yours. They don't sync. The one instance where I've used this, we got a new list of Chinese companies to ban from the state. The only resource they gave us was an Excel sheet with a bunch of web addresses. Didn't even give us the freaking company names. So I built a conversation through a conversation with the AI. I fed it that. I go, Let's figure out all the companies. Let's figure out all the subsidiaries and who on here are we likely to get impacted by. So who's going to impact IT in general? Let's look at networking. Let's look at AV. And I got those lists out and I sent those out to various teams. And a couple teams went, can you check this? Can you check that? Sure. And one team went, can you check this? No, you do it. And I gave them my conversation, and they were able to spend the next 5 days, every time they thought of a new brand, typing it back in and checking it without having to repeat the work I did for getting everything set up in the first place. It wasn't worth building a custom model for because it was a one-off, but it was a very easy way for me to, again, hand it off to them, and they can do it on their own time scale and without constantly messaging me in Teams about something. So that's import, export. That's the basics, and honestly, that's all the major tool sets on AI Builder. I highly recommend it.